Bum, bum. We are live. You guys always sneak up on me. Come on. It's always, I'll tell you, on our end, and I got Adam Glassfeld, All Rise News here, of course, to do a nice Monday breakdown. So many things happened over the weekend. But from our end, it's not like, when we're doing recording on video for YouTube or whatever, we see like a red light. We hit the record. Here, it's just like, you guys, it's not you, it's Substack. You just sort of sneak in, and suddenly I look up and we've got, 200 people that are now with us. Thank you for joining. I thought it'd be a good idea, given this fast moving story, and to answer some questions for our audience about the opening of the government, maybe. And putting aside the politics of whether the Democrats should have held out for more to get the government reopened, and why they kicked the can down the road on Obamacare, which nobody really believes that they should have done that. But I'm really talking about the logistics of the government reopening in the next several days, let's say the next 48 to 72 hours, and why that doesn't help when it comes to SNAP anti-hunger payments and food stamp payments to 1 out of 8 Americans who are below the poverty line and who rely on those payments. And so there's a new development in the last 5 or 6 hours came out, very, very early this morning. And I want to talk about with Adam, how this is really a masterclass by Ketanji Brown Jackson to corner the president politically by her stay order. She got a lot of flack because she was the one that granted the stay because it's her area, her neck of the woods, so to speak. It came to her first. It was like, no, not Ketanji Brown Jackson. Why is she the one? So send it to the whole court. No. And I've done hot takes on this. And you can see now how she gave the First Circuit 48 hours to make the ruling against the Trump administration, now forcing him politically and publicly to go back to the United States Supreme Court while the reopening is going on or not going on, to beg the Supreme Court to allow him to starve poor Americans.
Right.
I mean, it's a brilliant strategy. And she also knew that 5 out of 8 billion had already been released to them. So it wasn't life or death for the 48 hours, as it would be if no money had been released by the Trump administration. Now, of course, they were busy over the weekend, Adam, trying to claw back the money.
Right.
Think about the emotional distress on a group of people that is already fragile, to have to continue to check their accounts to see if they've got enough money to buy bread and milk for their family members. I mean, just think about that stress in your own life. If you weren't sure if you could go to the supermarket and pick up the necessary, essential things to have your family survive, elderly, babies, children, the rest, and the stress that goes along with that. And it's called food insecurity, right? Created by the Trump administration. So we're going to talk through that. First Circuit came out. We're on a 48-hour clock now, the Ketanji Brown clock, and we'll talk about that. Good. I don't call it a ruling. Good decision today, at least for another week. Same-sex marriage looks like it's not going to be overturned by a 5 or more vote of the United States Supreme Court. They couldn't count the 4, right? They couldn't count the 4 to get it off the case list to have it come up on appeal. The attempt by the MAGA religious majority, religious organizations to try to overturn the 10-year-old constitutional right to same-sex marriage. More than 800,000 couples are in same-sex marriage. There are more than 300,000 children whose parents are in a same-sex marriage. And we'll talk about why I think, and with Adam, why we think they couldn't count to 4 to bring this up on an appeal to the United States Supreme Court through the stalking horse case of Kim Davis, that disgusting clerk who 10 years ago or so refused to issue marriage licenses to people who were same-sex because it was against her religious beliefs.
And is now facing hundreds of thousands of dollars in penalties for that refusal.
Should be more. Should be millions of dollars for that. And then there's a hearing going on in the James Comey, about to go on in the James Comey frame job of a prosecution against the former FBI director. And Adams is Adam has it on the tip of his fingers there about what's happening today, and we'll cover that as well as we build our audience. We're going to hit 1,000 in a few moments here, which we really appreciate. Thanks for being on Legal AF Substack. Thanks for being on All Rise News Substack. The way to support what we do and fund what we do, if you will, is go up to this Chiron. I have to learn all sorts of vocabulary words in this business and check it to see. You might think I am subscribed. And then you'll look like I did when I first started with Adam, like, oh crap, I didn't subscribe to All Rise News. And then you'll click the button that's missing or both. And now you're a member and you'll be able to get this video when it goes up by Substack in an hour or two, because we're going to talk about a lot in the next 30 minutes. You may join late or in progress. And then if you want to help pay the freight for the 40 videos a week that we're doing on Midas and Legal AF and All Rise News and the reporting that Adam does from courtrooms and all the content we have here on Legal AF Substack, it's easy. There is a paid membership button for Legal AF. There's one for Adam's work. Ours is $6.77 a month. I try to keep it cheap. And then we overwhelm you with lots of content and lives like this so that you feel like you're getting a lot of value and that you're a card-carrying member of the Legal AF and All Rise News communities. Which one you want to kick it off with, Adam?
Well, why don't we go in order? Because I thought that there was a very the point that you made about the First Circuit coming through and Ketanji Brown Jackson's strategy paying off. It happened. It broke actually late last night, just as the news of this deal came to a head. There was the removal of a point of leverage, because this is what Donald Trump is doing. He is turning food insecurity, he is turning hunger of 1 in 8 Americans, 42 million Americans, millions of whom are children, using that as a point of leverage in these shutdown negotiations. And what the First Circuit said is you can't do that. And they reviewed the evidence. I want to read a quote from this because I just think there's a part of this ruling where you read the court declarations and it puts in sharp relief just what Trump is doing, what he conceives as.
Before you read, there's one interesting footnote on this. It's the panel. Judge Rinkelman.
Yep.
Keep an eye on Judge Rinkelman. She is a powerhouse. She was the senior litigation counsel for the Center for Reproductive Rights. She has argued at the United States Supreme Court. She's argued for reproductive and abortion rights. That's her background. She was appointed by Joe Biden, and she got the honor of writing for the 3-0 decision that came out by the First Circuit at Ketanji Brown Jackson's demand. She said, with all speed and dispatch, get that order out, and they accommodated her. But I wanted to make a point about Judge Rinkelman writing this, because it comes through her voice when you hear the comments that you're going to read.
Absolutely. And this passage, she is summarizing the declarations that came to court, the real suffering of Americans right now. Quote, those declarations describe a pregnant mother in Georgia forced to skip meals to feed her son, a working grandfather in Massachusetts who would eat twice instead of 3 times a day to feed his family, a mother in North Carolina who worries about how feeding her 3 children less will affect their health, and a nonprofit leader in Rhode Island whose clients will be forced to choose whether to heat or eat as the holidays approach and winter bears down in New England. She points out that it's preventable. And so that was one point of leverage. I want to actually point out that shortly before this ruling, folks who go to a U.S. government website, you've all seen this now on housing and urban development, at the Justice Department website, Department of State website, all of these propaganda messages about the radical Democrats shut down the government or the far left shut down the government, all these political messages. And there was another ruling just before this ruling saying, you know what, you can't use federal employees as a billboard for partisan political statements.
That's force-compelled First Amendment speech.
Absolutely. And it was a First Amendment ruling, and it also said Congress created the Hatch Act to oppose speech like this. So federal workers led by the union, the AFGE, American Federation of Government Employees, won that lawsuit. So these were 2 points of Trump leverage. The courts came in, right on the cusp of the great capitulation by 7 Senate Democrats and 1 independent who caucuses with the Democrats. So, right on the cusp of that, the courts are pushing back. So, what about timing? On the timing right there.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a great observation that you just made about leverage. The fact that we're even talking about the immorality, the
Right,
depravity of using underprivileged, the most fragile population in our society, Americans. We're not talking about Trinidad. We're not talking about migrant rapists, as Donald Trump likes to constantly troll us about. We're talking about Americans who are suffering, and he used them as a political pawn, continues to use them. So to answer the question, does this still matter? It does, because A, the government's not reopened yet.
right,
The Congress has to be recalled. It's by MAGA Mike because he put them on vacation, hiatus, gone fishing while Americans suffer. He's got to bring them back. There's got to be a vote, then the bills, reconciliation, also. So maybe Tuesday, maybe Wednesday. In the meantime, Tuesday, Wednesday doesn't work for me if I open my refrigerator, there's nothing to eat.
right,
And so that's why, from a precedent standpoint and from a legal strategy standpoint, these cases running parallel with the government trying to maybe reopening and funding SNAP program, this anti-hunger program, is very, very important and remains important. That these democracy forwards of the world that's with us on Legal AF and the attorneys general continue to fight to make sure that, as Sky Perryman told me in an interview, it's sad. It's a sad state of affairs that we have to bring a lawsuit to force the American president to care about Americans. And
right,
so Ketanji Brown Jackson did a great job of setting this up. Now, a lot of people said, no, why? Why was she the one with the administrative stay and the 2 days or whatever? And I was not as freaked out as they were, because, as some people were, because I went back and read what the government in their motion was requesting. This was not your classic shadow docket emergency appeal. They weren't asking for that. In fact, they didn't even use the term emergency appeal. They said, we need a temporary administrative stay to let the First Circuit make its ruling, which they would not grant us. So we're coming to you, Ketanji Brown Jackson, who runs the First Circuit as their boss, to give us that stay. And then we'll decide later on whether we will do by writ of certiorari, which is a traditional appeal, to come back to you. So that's what the ask was. She said, I'm going to give you the temporary stay to let the First Circuit do its job. I'm not going to give you a permanent or preliminary stay through the duration of the appeal at the First Circuit. I'm going to reserve the right for us to reconsider this at the Supreme Court. But First Circuit, you got your time. You're with all dispatch, get this done quickly. Now, they ruled within less than 48 hours after Ketanji gave him the time on a fully briefed 23 pages. Now we're on the Ketanji clock, because she's going to lift her stay in 48 hours from today or last
right,
night, meaning that the parties, meaning Trump, now would have to go publicly to the United States Supreme Court. Think about the political suicide. I mean, Donald Trump commits political suicide every day. He just
right.
doesn't realize it until the polling and the voting. But he is. He's weekend at Bernie's. This is dead. This presidency. So she's forcing him to go back publicly to demand the right to starve Americans and not pay them the additional $3 billion, while he continues his Scrooge, as we get into the holidays here, his Scrooge-like conduct over the weekend to demand that the states, that he be able to claw back the $5 billion they already paid. See, his
Well,
problem, Adam, is this: on an emergency appeal, he already paid the money. So he already paid out the 5 of 8 billion. Somebody figured out in the White House that that is not a good look for their legal position, that they paid out 5 of 8 when they said they couldn't do it. And then to say, it's the last 3 we're fighting over. Well, that's not an emergency.
right.
That's not a violation of the Article 2 powers of the president. This is arbitrary and capricious. And here's one.
I'm sorry. I have little doubt, however, that Donald Trump will do just that. He's going to go up to the Supreme Court. He's going to ask for the right to starve 1 in 8 Americans. That that 3 million, that remaining amount of money
Yeah,
that you mentioned,
billion.
there was a billion, excuse me. There was a point in the First Circuit ruling where they mentioned that it would have been easier to pay it all, and it would have been legally required. It was the law to exhaust this contingency fee. If you do it piecemeal, it creates a logistical headache. But you, government lawyers, agreed. You told us it is easier to pay this out fully than to do this
And,
piecemeal.
and they
And it is also
identified.
your obligation.
Yeah, and they identified where they would tap the extra 3 billion from the
100%.
Section 32 funds for child nutrition that has an overflow of 23 billion sitting in it. Some of it covers the same group. Take 3 out of the 23, top up the 8, and make people not have food insecurity. Here's a one last quote that I liked also from the 23 pages that came out from the first, written by Judge Rinkelman, which puts this in stark relief. For low income Americans, SNAP is a vital bulwark against hunger and food insecurity. Access to food is, of course, a basic human need. Further, food security is a critical factor in health and well being. The ability to stay in stable housing and children's physical and educational development. Without SNAP, tens of millions would go hungry, the first among a cascade of other health and financial harms that would befall those forced to go without enough food, particularly in the months leading up to winter. So, which side of that do you want to be on? The MAGA side, which is stealing the turkey from Tiny Tim on Christmas Day? Or do you want to be on the side of helping everyday Americans who struggle? The numbers are staggering here. I got to tell you, I know a lot about things in this world. I did not realize that 1 in 8 Americans are on food assistance.
Right.
And at 42 and 16 million children rely on this, including babies, for nutrition. I mean,
I
it's shocking that it just shows you the other problems we have in our America, where we have the wealthiest country in the world, and 42 million people are below the poverty line needing food assistance. But it also shows you why the Democrats and fair-minded people fight so hard for the social safety net, because despite AI and chips and techno bros and all the rest, 42 million people are not making it in this country through no fault of their own. Not everybody can have a podcast or a social media platform or an AI killer app. Some people are just, hardworking people and nice people that need the dignity of having food security, the most basic of needs.
Right. And I remember watching Judge McConnell issue that ruling, forcing Trump to pay out these SNAP benefits. And to your point, Michael, I wasn't aware of these statistics either. Him saying it in real time. I knew 42 million Americans. I didn't do the math of the total population of the country, 1 in 8. How many of those people were children? He read that out during that ruling. And another thing that he pointed out that doesn't get emphasized nearly enough, this is the first time in U.S. history since the passage of the Food Stamp Act that food assistance has lapsed. This is a deliberate choice. This is a political choice to use the hunger faced by 1 in 8 Americans as political leverage during a shutdown. And I think it's so easy to lose sight of
And,
that
and a
against the law.
shutdown, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go
No,
ahead.
no, that's fine.
And a shutdown, as are some of our commentary, although I see some harsh commentary, or at least the way they're phrasing it. A shutdown where the Democrats have been fighting and will hopefully continue to fight for an overlapping group of people who rely on Affordable Care Act and Obamacare. These are the same. There's a Venn diagram here where this is a lot of the same people who are both food insecure, lack of dignity in social programs, and can't afford health care, along with a lot of Americans. And this ridiculous comment that Trump made, which just shows he's completely out of his mind, if he ever was in his right mind, where he says, "I got an idea. Let's get rid of all the insurance companies." I'm like, okay. And we'll give everybody $2,000 for their health account. I'm like, yeah. And then they can go get the insurance that they want from who? From insurance companies. I'm like, are you listening to what you're even saying at this point? Do you understand that healthcare, because of the pool, the insurance, and all sorts of tables that are used, you're getting tens to hundreds to millions of dollars of medical coverage in case of a catastrophe or cancer or whatever. $2,000 ain't going to cut it, where I now got to compete on the open market with the sharks of the insurance industry and say goodbye to the number one feature of Obamacare if Donald Trump gets his hands on healthcare with MAGA, pre-existing conditions. Goodbye. Insurance companies don't want to cover it. They never did. They were forced to do it with Obamacare. And the first thing that's going to go in the marketplace is pre-existing conditions.
Right. And I live in New York City. That's about a month of premiums here.
Right.
I mean, it's
Right.
a month of the premium on the market. It's as ridiculous as the idea of the 50-year mortgage, so you can double your interest. That's the other great idea being considered by this White House, where I'm sure that the next idea will be generational serfdom in order to have home ownership. 50 years instead of 30 years. That's what they're considering.
Oh wow, that's so crazy. We care about, just so everybody understands, we care about healthcare here on Legal AF and All Rise News. We care about everything at the moment that we have to address, and it's only because the moderates and the blue are running into court and getting billions of dollars released and holding this Trump administration accountable with 600 lawsuits that we're able to report on these things. You see, left to their own devices, what MAGA and the R would do, if they're not held accountable in courts and by the public. It's public. They finally I thought they started to figure out, Adam, that it's a bad political play to be attacking and trolling the poor, but he's still doing it.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's going to stop. I mean, I keep going back to that other ruling about the use of the partisan messages on government websites, but that they commandeered the email accounts, the auto reply accounts of people who are working for the Department of Education are forced to blame the shutdown on the radical left or the Democrats, that it's the government's words that are being ventriloquized on their own email accounts.
Is that a real word? I like that word. Is that a real ventriloquized? Is that a word?
I mean, I will make it a verb. We'll run with it here.
It's a Classfeldism. I like it.
There
I'll go
we
with it.
go.
I'm going to go with it. So let's switch gears to the first. We did Snap. Let's switch gears to same-sex marriage and end with Comey. But one comment that came up in the chat here, as they say in the comments, and now's the time. Check that button. See if you're subscribed here and on Classfeld's All Rise News, because when this video is over, poof, it'll disappear unless you're a member. And then you'll get it otherwise, so you can review what we've talked about. We're already about 25, 30 minutes in here. And then if you can swing paid membership, that pays for Adam to go to the courts and pays to keep my 12 contributors all contributing and the 40 videos that we do a week. People are like, how do you pay for it all? Yeah, that's how we pay for it all. So think about becoming a paid member as well. And we've got a judge up in Massachusetts. Some people asked where. A senior status judge appointed by Ronald Reagan, who in a noisy exit, and I mean that in a good way, good trouble, in the Atlantic has quit his job as of the 7th of November. After being on the bench for 30 plus years and calling out Donald Trump and the depravity of the Trump administration, and he can't do it any longer. Now, I kind of want to hear your view. I have mixed emotions about this, because while I appreciated the 10-page article essay in the Atlantic and him basically saying, I will not serve a fascist president any longer who does not respect the rule of law, and I will not enable that by being on the bench. On the other hand, I've done a fair amount of reporting, and so have you, about senior status federal judges like Wolf, who are sitting in their chair and issuing orders to protect America against a rogue, lawless president. I mean, how many times have you and I talked about Judge Breyer in San Francisco, Judge Young also in Massachusetts? I joked it's the revenge of the senior status judges. Royce Lamperth in D.C.
Right.
And I've said, they're our secret weapon, because they don't, what's the phrase I used to use with my late mother? They don't give a, they run out of F's to give. They don't give an
Right.
F any longer. And they're not going anywhere. They've got seniors, they're on until they die. But they see, and they have the historical context, being on with, being appointed by the Reagans and the Bushes and the Clintons, to see what's really happening. I like when they actually stay in their robes and continue during this terrible, terrible moment here in time to fight for us. So I like the essay. I like the call out. But what do you think about Wolf resigning?
Well, to your point, Michael, the Judge Young decision in the case involving the pro-Palestine students, and where he upheld their First Amendment rights, there was a big portion of that ruling that just commented on Trump's attacks on the rule of law in the United States. As a matter of fact, the entire ruling was fashioned as a response to a pro-Trump heckler. So to your point, yeah, federal judges have a hell of a forum from which to speak. They can speak through their ruling, and their rulings carry the weight and the force of law. And you sometimes see active judges who go in public and speak. Now, when they speak in public, they dance around Trump. They don't make an explicitly political statement. In terms of Judge Wolf here, my understanding is he was very confident that by relinquishing his seat, he's not giving Trump another seat on
Oh,
the
that's
bench.
true. It'll be a
Yeah,
governor of
but
Massachusetts. Yeah.
so I do think that maybe he just wanted to be entirely unmuzzled. That yeah, there is this phenomenon, and it's happening especially with Reagan appointees. It's
Yeah.
happening, the revenge of the senior status judges, where they have spent decades on the bench, maybe 4 decades on the bench, and they have some strong opinions on this thing that we call the rule of law, and they,
Like,
they
hang in
fight for
there. Hang
it.
on. I mean, we need you issuing rulings.
Right,
I
right.
like
So
essays. I like the Atlantic. But
but I actually read those 200-page rulings, and so do
yeah,
you. And
right.
unlike those essays, the 200-page rulings might prevent the government from actually taking an unlawful action and
Yeah.
abuse of power.
Yeah, he might have other things going on. But look, I'm all kidding aside. I honor him, Judge Wolf. He's served a long time in public service. But I don't want to see a slew of senior status judges
Right.
exiting,
Of course.
and going, oh, I mean, I get it when senators do it, Congress people do it, because, like, why? It's hard to be in the Senate right now if you're a Democrat. Although you see, there is a fight still to be had. Why don't we switch gears quickly and do same sex marriage, because it was a one line order. um, let me let me frame this. Can you cover it for 1 second while I answer a
Yeah,
question? Okay,
absolutely. Yeah,
good.
no, I mean, I
Yeah.
I would say that Kim Davis discovered the way the vast majority of Supreme Court applications go. Denied, cert denied. And and there was no dissent to the order. It doesn't mean that this Supreme Court will never try to erode the long march of progress as they are wont to do, but it means that it's not going to happen today. There's not going to be any dissent to that order, and Kim Davis will have to stew in her retroactive ideas, and that's the long and the short of today's
Yeah.
denial of cert.
Yeah, and there's one more. They consider these things in what they call a long conference, and they decide to have hundreds of cases, some of which are held over from other terms, and they get together and they caucus, and if they have 4 votes, they bring it up. If they don't have 4 votes, it's not brought up on an appeal. And you got to have 4 to bring it up and 5 to win. Obviously, they don't have 5 votes, and I don't think it's that surprising because even Sam Alito of the MAGA Six said over the summer that when it comes to things like same-sex marriage, the Obergefell decision from 10 years ago, there's such a reliance interest with, 360,000 plus, 380,000 plus, no, 860,000 plus same-sex marriages. So 1.6 million people in same-sex marriages and over 300,000 children within those marriages. that's too much reliance interest, that even MAGA would not be able to pull that constitutional right, even though Clarence Thomas has been begging since the Dobbs decision in June of 2022 to reconsider the Obergefell decision and rip it away. And that's why MAGA right-wing Christians, with a stalking horse of Kim Davis, decided now's our time. Let's see if we've got the votes. Well, because of the Dobbs decision. You remember they chipped away at Roe versus Wade for decades until they finally got the 5 votes they needed to and 6 to overturn Roe versus Wade. So they were hoping they could do it. Kim Davis is just a disgusting plaintiff for many reasons. I just never saw it, especially when Alito said at a conference over the summer that because of the reliance interest, he doesn't think he wouldn't. He almost said he wouldn't vote for same-sex marriage to be overturned. And Amy Coney Barrett said the same thing in her book over the summer, that there's just certain things that are just so much reliance interest that we wouldn't F with. That's my paraphrase. So, but, it's still good to see they rejected it. And next week, they got one more conference. And if we get through one more conference and they've rejected it again, it's done, at least for Kim Davis's appeal. Will they continue to try? Yes. Will they try to find a more favorable plaintiff to do it? I'm talking about the MAGA right? Yes. So we're not completely out of the woods, but I did want to update. It is a good piece of news. Nobody dissented.
100%.
Nobody issued a statement, not even Thomas. So for now, I think we're out of the woods when it comes to taking away same-sex marriage as a constitutional right.
Absolutely. Co-signed everything you said. That's pretty much all there is to be said. It's a denial, no dissent. It doesn't mean that everything in the future is that there won't be other attacks. But for today, it's a victory for those who believe in LGBTQ rights.
Absolutely. You want to catch everybody up on Comey?
Absolutely. Well, I'll be going to federal court in Alexandria later this week to watch James Comey and Letitia James move to disqualify Lindsay Halligan. You have the Judge Curry sitting by designation. She's a judge from the District of North Carolina, but she is now going to be in the Eastern District of Virginia, hearing oral arguments on this issue on Thursday. Today, there is supposed to be a telephone conference over the grand jury transcripts and the disclosure of that to James Comey. There will be remote public access. I'm going to try to listen into that later today at 4 p.m. But as Popok was saying a little bit earlier, that's what I'm going to be heading down to the court. If you can take a moment right now to subscribe to both Legal AF and All Rise News. With All Rise News, your paid subscriptions send me to the court. But the Lindsay Halligan, we've been talking about this. The two of us have talked about this for quite some time. The Lindsay Halligan was the second interim, quote unquote, U.S. attorney in a row. And under the Federal Vacancies Reform Act, that's not supposed to happen. And that's according to Sam Alito, when Sam Alito was part of the Office of Legal Counsel. And you and me, Michael, have talked about the fact that Judge Curry is interested in Lindsay Halligan's role in the grand jury investigation suggests to both of us that she's thinking about what to do if she finds that Lindsay Halligan has been illegally appointed. Did that infect the proceedings so much that she ought to dismiss the indictment if Lindsay Halligan has been illegally appointed? And to put this in perspective, there have been 3 fully adjudicated cases where a defendant has challenged the legitimacy of a Trump-installed U.S. attorney, and they all won. But those other 3 weren't able to dismiss their indictments. That's why I think it's so telling and it's so significant that Judge Curry is asking to look at the full grand jury records or listen to the full grand jury recording.
What did the indictment signer do now?
Exactly.
What did she say in there? What kind of crazy shit did she say out loud to the jury? Listen, I got to tell you, all kidding aside, it was years. People ask when you get confident as a lawyer, and feel like the first few years of being a lawyer, forget about becoming an insta prosecutor. The first few years of being a lawyer, even though your card says you're a lawyer and your diploma, your certificate says you're a lawyer, you feel like, I'll be frank, you feel like a fraud for the first couple of years. Like, you're a lawyer, but please don't ask me. I hope nobody asks me any legal questions other than my partner who wants me to research a certain issue. You certainly don't feel coming out of law school like competent to represent clients directly, like put out your own shingle and like the law firm of Michael Popok in the first year or two. I know people that have done it, and I'm amazed at the misplaced confidence that comes with saying, I'm a lawyer, I get to represent clients. Like, you're not ready. And people ask when you feel ready and why you feel ready. And it has to do with your watch. It has to do with the amount of time that goes by. Malcolm Gladwell, in a book called The Outliers, talked about people who succeed in different fields and then how many hours it takes to master a violin, computer programming, and different things. And he said 10,000 hours. And it was funny that he said that because that is almost exactly my own experience. I didn't feel like a real lawyer until about year 5.
Hmm.
And lawyers measure things by hours. So that's about 10,000 hours. So when he wrote that, I just had this smile on my face because like well, I'll give you an example. I go to court with a partner. I write the brief. I come up with the argument. I prep that partner for the argument. I go to court. And let's say in year 2 or 3, I go, I sit, I watch, and I think to myself, oh my God, will I ever be able to present a legal argument as well as that person? Then the next year, like year 4, you 4 or 5, you go to the court. Same thing. You prepped the partner. You carried the bag. You gave him the law. You came up with the argument, and you're sitting next to the person. And then somewhere around year 4 or 5, as they're arguing, something slips. A dialogue slips into your mind, or a monologue, and it goes, "I think I could do better than that." And it's just something that happens with experience and time.
Right.
That's what's missing with Lindsay Halligan. You can't put on a Halloween costume. I'm a federal prosecutor now and know what to do in a room when things go awry. When, everything's great when you're an autopilot running the plane, but when something goes wrong, you're not qualified to handle it. So that's a long-winded way of saying Judge Curry wants to know what happened in that hearing room, in the grand jury room, and how she handled it.
Wait, you're telling me that when she stepped into grand jury rooms for the first and second time in her life for the James Comey case and then Letitia James case, she didn't have the requisite experience to take on the two
Okay.
most scrutinized cases on planet Earth right now, that
Yeah.
maybe those grand jury transcripts reflect a misstep, or even worse, an abuse of power, that
Yes.
could possibly be a result of this
Yeah.
first-time prosecutor
What
who
could
has
go
never
wrong?
been in this position before?
What could go wrong? And
What
and
could
you know
go
what? And F her. I mean, I get a little salty on the lives. And F her, because she knows she'll never be a confirmed US attorney. And she doesn't care because her job, as they told her, is to get these indictments as quickly as possible, and then her job is done.
wrong?
She knows she's never going to be confirmed by the Senate as the Eastern District of Virginia prosecutor, but that was never her job. And she's
Right.
done her job.
Right, absolutely. And that's why I always try whenever, because we talk all the time about Bill Esseli in the Central District of California, Sigel Chadha in the District of Nevada, Lena Haba in the District of New Jersey, or John Sarcone in the Northern District of New York. And it's easy to lose sight of the disqualification battles, why it matters. Well, it matters because Trump is installing in these districts. In other districts, there are actually competent United States attorneys, even in this administration. He has carefully chosen districts to install install loyalists who he knows cannot be confirmed by the Senate, and where the democratic checks and balances in our Constitution and laws to prevent these abuses of power are under strain. So I try not to lose sight when covering these cases that it's not just did she meet these legal requirements? Is it about the blue slip? Is it about the Federal Vacancies Reform Act? No, it's about Trump trying to end run the checks and balances that prevent the abuses of power from the people he has chosen for the express purpose of committing those abuses of power.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love being on here with you. It's like we have our own little podcast thing. So I haven't had you on Legal AF on the podcast, although I'm happy to. I got a show on Tuesday nights called The Intersection, which we do on the Midas Touch Network. I think I'd like to have you on one day. You and
That
I
would
can
be
do
great.
You and I can do a segment and kind of expose you also to a whole new audience. For those that only know Adam and don't know me, I'm Michael Popok for Legal AF. And of those who only know me and not Adam, this is Adam Klasfeld for All Rise News, who's with us over on the Legal AF YouTube channel. Did a little sell job there. Legal AF YouTube channel. We just had our best 2 weeks in terms of viewership. We're over 925,000 subscribers in just about a year. We do 10 new videos a day. A number of them, a couple of them a day, are usually Adam Klasfeld. I do a handful a day as well, and along with our other contributors. We're about to onboard the American Civil Liberties Union, which is going to come on board with their own playlist, and talking to people like Adam and me as well. Democracy Forward is there with us. Court of History, Sidney Blumenthal and Sean Wilentz. Court Accountability Action, talking about and getting some great guests, talking about corruption in the federal court system. Pragmatic Optimist, our Gen Z, Gen Alpha people, Rachel and Tiara, who talk about it from sort of their perspective, which we like as well. So come on over to Legal AF, the YouTube channel, and support all that we do. Here on the Substack, another community within a community that we're building. Check that button. It'll tell you whether you are already subscribed to our two channels. And if you can swing the paid membership, that, whatever it is, $1 a month, that gets uh, Klasfeld into the courts and the courtrooms. That pays for the 40 videos that we do and the contributors, the work we do on Legal AF Substack. And allows you to comment. There's people that are commenting here. Those are the paid members, and some other exclusive content as well. So I'm glad you're here for our live. We're getting back into the groove of doing once a week, at least with Adam Klasfeld and me here, and to talk to our audience, which is one of our distinct honors and pleasures. If you are joining late and there's some people joining in progress, you'll get this video when you become a member, just a regular member. Hit that button, and then, I don't know, in about an hour, Substack will post it, and you'll be able to review what we've talked about. Adam, always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you all. Shout out to the Midas Mighty and the Legal AFers.